You are listening to the Think Brick Australia podcast. Think Brick Australia represents the clay, brick and paver manufacturers of Australia. Brick by brick, our podcast will discuss technical information and architectural case studies with special guests. I'm your host, Elizabeth McIntyre, the CEO of Think Brick Australia. On today's podcast, I am delighted to be joined by Jim Ng, who has been our intern now for nearly a year. Jim, is that correct?
That's right, Elizabeth. Nearly a year.
You saw us through COVID and you've stayed on a little bit longer. Before we start this podcast, we do ask people for another use of bricks that is not for their intended purpose. Do you have one of those uses?
Yeah, actually, recently during lockdown, our family got a new puppy. And when we take him out to the backyard, he always likes to make a mess and start digging at things. So what we've actually done is we've just taken the bricks from behind the house and used it to cover up and stop him from going places where he's not supposed to go.
Keep puppies safe.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, before you joined Think Brick, or whilst you were finishing your internship off, what were you studying and where were you studying it?
Yeah, so before joining Think Brick, I was actually at UNSW studying a civil engineering with architecture degree. That was something that I was always interested in just because of how you could, I guess, explore the more technical side and also the more creative side of buildings in one degree. So that was really exciting for me.
And why did you decide to apply for our internship at Think Brick? What drew you to us?
During my career in university, I developed a great passion for architecture. And to be honest, when I first saw the role on Seek, I had no idea what Think Brick did. I didn't even know what an industry organization did. But what I found from Think Brick was that you guys really had a clear focus for promoting creativity in the built industry and promoting architecture as well. And I thought that was something that I really wanted to get behind because of my architectural background.
And what sort of things have you worked on since you've been at Think Brick?
Being an intern here at Think Brick, some of the things that I've done include doing technical inquiries, so helping engineers or architects with their masonry projects. One of the projects that I more enjoy doing is actually presentations for universities. One of the things that we do here at Think Brick is we try to upskill young people entering the building industry, and doing university presentations is a great way of doing that.
And you've done a great job at those. We also do a few other things with fact sheets. Are there any fact sheets that hold a special place in your heart?
One that comes to mind would be the reverse brick veneer fact sheet. And that was actually the first fact sheet that the technical team had me doing. We all know what a brick veneer is. It's when you have a brick leaf on the outside and you have a timber frame on the inside doing the structural work. Less commonly, we also have reverse brick veneer, which is when you have the brick on the inside and the structural frame on the outside. Sometimes people aren't sure about how to build reverse brick veneer when things are flipped around. So developing a fact sheet to help fill that gap in knowledge was one of the first things that I did here.
And as this was one of your first sort of full-time jobs, what did you see as any challenges as different from university?
I think one of the big things was definitely working with different people as well as having different tasks every day. Being at Think Brick, it's quite a small organization, which I think is one of the best things about it. You get to work with not only the technical team, but also graphics as well. So I guess being able to communicate technical concepts to different teams was quite a big challenge. Another challenge would be the variety of work was quite a challenge in that one day you might be doing technical calculations, and then another day you might be doing presentations. And then another day you might be on a podcast with Elizabeth. So,
and what did you find, sometimes when you learn things at university and then you get into the real world, what did you find the differences there with what you'd learnt in terms of and then applying those things?
At university, often when you're trying to solve a problem in an exam, for example, or in an assignment, usually all the answers are in the textbook, right? And if they're not in the textbook, usually you can ask your professor and they'll help you along. In the real world, the buck stops with you, and you're really the one who gets to determine whether your work is correct or not. And that's the biggest difference that I've found.
And what advice would you give to young engineers, Jim?
I think the best advice that I could give to young engineers is to find a good internship. I was very lucky to be able to come to ThinkBrick and be exposed to all the different types of works that you guys do here. And from that, I was really able to grow a lot and develop a lot as a young engineer. So find a good internship and they'll take you a long way.
Jim, it's been our absolute pleasure not only having you on the podcast, but of your contribution to the associations during your time, which has gone above and beyond what we expected. And I know that we will miss you on your next adventure, but we wish you all the very best. And thank you again for thinking Brick and contributing to what we do here, a small organisation doing some big things.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
If you have enjoyed this podcast, please follow, rate and review our podcast. We are always looking for new ways to think Brick. If you have an idea of what you'd like to hear about, there's a link in our show notes to let us know.